Hi, welcome back to Edu-meh-cation. We wanted to take a minute and just explain that our goal continues to be to have podcasts twice a month. However, we have had some family needs arise that are going to take some time from our podcast for a little while. So for right now, we will for sure commit to doing this podcast once a month, knowing that our goal is to get back to every 2 weeks as soon as we can. But we didn't want you to think that we were quitting already. We're not quitters.
No.
But it will be a little bit further in between, just for a little while. So.
Yes. Today we wanted to discuss our next topic, teacher burnout. And the teacher shortage and just why that is happening. Why are teachers leaving? And we are going to describe what teacher burnout is and why teachers experience this, and even some solutions, suggested solutions that we found. And according to the National Education Association, which neither one of us are no longer members of, and that's a topic for another day, another podcast.
For sure.
Teacher burnout can be defined as a condition in which an educator has exhausted the personal and professional resources necessary to do the job. So, like when you stop and think about that, the word exhausted is, it's how many teachers feel, and truly have exhausted.
And they feel like they've tried everything.
Yeah.
So we also learned something called decision fatigue is another thing that teachers can suffer from. Some interesting numbers. Teachers make over 1,500 decisions a day and another 250 judgments a day. That's according to data that was collected by busyteacher.org. Another comparison that didn't surprise us being teachers, but puts it into maybe a little bit more clarity for those of you that aren't in the classroom, that teacher decision-making, daily decision-making, rivals that of air traffic controllers. Wow.
That really got me when we read that.
And because we've been hearing a lot recently about air traffic controllers and the stress they're under and the decisions they have to make. And so we read in several different places that teachers and their decision-making rivals that of air traffic controllers. According to a 2022 Gallup poll, almost 44% of American K-12 educators reported feeling burnout often or always. So almost half of the teachers have experienced it often, not just once, or always. A more recent poll from December of last year, 2024, stated that over 270,000 teachers are expected to quit each year for the next 3 years. So I was a literacy teacher, but when I think about this, that's almost 1 million teachers rounding up.
That is really great math.
Thank you. 1 million teachers in 3 years. And that statistic came from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics.
Jeepers.
That's a huge problem.
That is.
We're going to lose almost 1 million teachers. You'll be one of those.
Yep. For sure.
For
sure. Oh my gosh. Wow. Yeah, some really eye-opening statistics for sure that I don't think you and I even knew. We know it's a problem, but reading some of these,
right, when you see the numbers,
exactly. Wow. And from the National Commission on Teaching and America's Future, they found that nearly 50% new teachers leave the profession within their first 5 years. Not surprising,
and we've seen it.
Yeah.
And the teachers that left, most of them that we have interacted with, left for business.
Yeah.
And never looked back.
Exactly.
They couldn't believe truly how much easier the business world was compared to the education world.
Right. Yep. Ugh. And generally the teacher population is aging, and more like we are.
Like we are.
I wouldn't say my brain has aged. Well,
I think your brain has definitely aged. I think you and I share a brain now, and at one point we had our own. But you go ahead and believe that you haven't aged.
The part I thought that hasn't aged in my brain is that I still think like a 15-year-old.
Our maturity,
but
for
there
sure.
we go, maturity. Exactly.
I would agree.
And any of you who know us might agree as well. Anywho, so yeah, more experienced teachers are retiring as well. So we're losing teachers that way, but really it's the burnout that is the problem,
right?
And some are seeking to choose to retire early due to exhaustion and burnout, just as the ever increasing demands on our profession.
And that was me, Kari, because when I was teaching and at the point that I was at, my job was amazing. Literacy is my passion, and I was working with those kiddos that needed remediation, and I was working in small groups helping those kids that really needed it. But I was burned out because I was dealing with behaviors all around me, not in my group, but we aren't in a classroom, or we might be in a flex area teaching. And so I was spending more time dealing with the behaviors of other students that weren't part of my group and not feeling really supported, you know, in a lot of ways. And so it just became too much. I'd come home every night really discouraged and frustrated because I didn't feel like I had the time with the students that I was supposed to work with. And I felt like I was being kind of the potty police about how they're behaving in the bathroom, or trying to help with a runaway student, or just a lot of different things. And I just couldn't do it anymore for my own health.
Exactly.
So there were some immediate consequences that we did find, and that we already knew are going to happen because of the teacher shortage. So we thought we would share a few of those with you right now. The most obvious one is larger class sizes. And we know from experience that larger class sizes greatly affect every component of the classroom. Not only are you unable to devote the time and energy to each student for as much as they need, you are also busier outside of the classroom with communication with more parents and different things like that. So increasing the size of classes, really, in our opinion, isn't a solution. It's kind of a quick fix for districts while they're trying to solve this solution. Larger class sizes just lead to poor quality instruction and less time with each student. And so if you're giving less time to each student and you're not able to focus on the quality of education as well, that's going to have a dire effect on their education.
Oh, for sure. So piggybacking off of that, the larger class sizes, the student to teacher ratios, and teachers having to spend more time with individual students who are seeking attention or needing attention. Then the lesson gets put to the side, and then so the other students can't learn. And then also there's the grading, there's the communication with the parents, there's the filling out a report when you have an incident. Like there are so many things coming at a teacher.
And when we first started, at least the state of Minnesota had a cap on early elementary. I think I remember the cap for first and maybe second grade was around 21 or 22 students, and it couldn't go higher than that. And they got rid of that cap maybe 3 years or so into when I entered the district.
It did not last long.
And now I think the last time I was part of it, the cap for second grade is at 27 or 28 now. Which maybe 7 extra kids doesn't seem like a lot, but in a classroom, that's a lot. It's 7 times more communicating with different families. And sometimes you're not just communicating with one household, you're communicating with 2 households. It increases every single thing that you're doing in the classroom.
Right. And really, I think that's how I developed my ADHD, my self-diagnosed ADHD, is that decision fatigue, and that like we're constantly having to do a million things. So there we go.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know if your mom thought you had ADHD when you were younger, because I would agree you definitely haven't as an adult.
Oh gosh,
maybe that is part of it.
It could be. You know, who knows? But we'll just go with that. Okay, one other consequence is a single teacher has to cover more subjects because schools aren't able to find and hire the required educators that are needed, especially in special ed. We're finding.
Or for the classes like up in high school, I remember one of my kiddos wanted to get into a much higher math class, and they couldn't because they didn't have teachers to teach that. That's unacceptable.
It is.
So
wow.
Another consequence is you end up with unqualified teachers. You end up with unqualified teachers in all areas. And Kari brought up special ed, but that's one that comes to mind for us. We as a district are having trouble even finding special ed teachers that will apply for those jobs. Right. They're just not out there. So what ends up happening is they will either hire someone that maybe they have a special ed background, but they really wouldn't be the first choice for whatever reason, or they don't have a special ed degree and they'll hire them sometimes on the contingency that they'll work towards their special ed degree. Right. And this is true for other things too. I'm sure like tech and shop and different things, when you get up into the later grades, I know they're experiencing the same issues. Another component to that is substitutes.
Right.
So first of all, there's a substitute shortage. There have been many times as specialist teachers where we're not in the classroom anymore. Rather than working with our students, we've been pulled to go teach for a day, subbing basically in our school because nobody showed up for the job. That's a huge issue, because then those students that are really needing the remediation and the help aren't getting it. And it has happened multiple times.
Oh, yes.
I remember some weeks canceling many of my classes to have to go in and sub for other teachers.
Right.
And the substitutes that we do get into the building often are not, they don't have an education background. They now are accepting substitutes. I believe they do have to have a 4-year degree to sub.
I think so.
Maybe that has changed since I was there, but it was a 4-year degree, but it could have been in anything. And I remember this one teacher, or this one substitute, came in, and super nice guy, had all the right reasons for wanting to sub, but he was literally a rocket scientist. He graduated in rocket science. Now, you can be the nicest person in the world, but a classroom of 8-year-olds will take advantage.
Oh, yes, they will.
And so that day, all the rest of the team were leaving their classrooms, including me, leaving my classroom to go check in on him and the class because they weren't behaving. They were being super disrespectful. He didn't have classroom management. How could he? He didn't ever have lessons on how to have classroom management and what that should look like.
Right.
But it's still a disservice. It becomes, in my mind, more of a babysitting for the day than the education that we're supposed to be giving the students.
Right. Yeah, that's been lost. And we have quicker teacher turnover for sure with the burnout, and this creates a lack of stability for the students, for the rest of the staff, and continuity within the education process within schools and the institutions. And really the teacher burnout can also limit subject availability. Like we were talking, like high school not having a math class available, or extracurricular activities could be cut, and it's trickling down, and it has been for a while, and we need to figure out how can we start getting this to go the other way, and stop the burnout, and support teachers. Poor student achievements is another result of teacher burnout and shortage. Students perform worse and graduate from school with poor quality education, and in the United States we don't want that.
Well, and we've seen just recently nationally the test scores that came out on 8th graders and how poorly we're doing in reading and math. And that's unacceptable. That is unacceptable for a country like we are to not have strong schools. But that is what's happening, and part of these are the reasons why we're seeing those scores slip.
Oh, for sure.
We did look into, suggested solutions to this and to teacher burnout. One of the first ones was to balance your work life and your home and work life. And
you seem so peaceful right now saying that.
Thank you. I'm not teaching anymore. But with that said, yes, that's great advice. It's not realistic as a teacher, or it's very difficult as a teacher to balance a home work life, because your job is never ever done as a teacher. You are never finished with everything. There's always something else that has to be done. And because as teachers overall, we are caregivers, we are compassionate, we want to, we see it as our mission or our calling, many of us. We can't just leave it at school. And we wouldn't do our job well if we left it at school. We spend all day teaching and interacting with the students and going to meetings and doing recess duty and fitting in a 20-minute lunch.
Usually working during lunch.
Many people work during lunch. That then when you get home, you have to grade those papers to see which students need more support and which students need to be extended and challenged more. You have to make those calls that you didn't have time to make during the day to families. You have to fill out any referrals that might need to be filled out for behavior. You have to fill out anything for any meetings, IEP, individualized educational plan meetings, or other things that you are getting ready for. So it is really a challenge to find that home work balance.
Ooh, so that one, not so sure about that solution. Another solution is to provide emotional and professional support. Love that idea too. I mean, we talked about let's get massages every morning. Not so
I did not.
And really, that would just be a loose fitting Band-Aid over,
Right.
That comes down to, I think for that one, well, time and money are so huge, but
it's not that we don't feel that it's a matter of not having money.
Yeah.
It's a matter of how it's being used.
Yes.
And when we were planning this, we started thinking, well, we're going to create our own agency.
Yes, and it's called DOSE.
DOSE, the Department of
Spending Efficiency.
Something like that.
We haven't finalized
Department
it yet.
of School Efficiency.
I love it.
Okay, DOSE. I'll give you a dose of that.
Look for us on the national news, and we're gonna be blowing this out of the water.
I'm sure you're convinced of that. Okay.
Yes.
The next one was improving teacher training, and again, I think we've put too many resources and too much funding into teacher training once they've been in the classroom for a while. Now, I think there are some good programs. That our district has one where the new teachers for the first 3 years have follow-up meetings after school, and they talk through challenges and things. That's great.
Yep.
When I was first starting, and you may have been part of this too, they had a mentor program. And so it was a teacher that had been in the district for a while, and I could go to her and ask her questions. That was great. But once you get to a certain point in your career, I think we waste money on teacher training. I have a lot of things I'm thinking about right now. That some things I needed, some things I didn't. So maybe the teacher should get to choose which trainings they're going to, because we know what we need. Our classroom management was solid.
Yes.
I don't feel like I needed to have training on classroom management, but I would have liked training on other things about something called ACEs and students' needs, which we can talk about at another time.
Oh, wow, yeah.
We used to get to choose our trainings, and then that was taken away, and they just gave us, everybody's going to this, everybody's going to this, but we don't all need this, have the same needs. And I think a lot of money is wasted on teacher training, especially as you become a career teacher.
And let's, like we've said a couple times, let's take that money and put it where it's absolutely needed.
Right.
Hiring more staff.
DOSE to the rescue.
Exactly. DOSE. Oh, we are funny, aren't we? And actually, this next one is basically that, like increasing resources and support staff. Okay, wouldn't it be wonderful if we had a support staff person, paraprofessional in every single classroom? And they were in there full time, where now they have to be in between sometimes 3 or more classrooms with multiple students, where if they were in one classroom, they could form those relationships are
and
so
that
important.
Continuity that's important to those students too.
Exactly. So we need the money, but let's put the money in the right places to be able to get these resources and the support staff in every classroom.
I think that's great, Kari. I think that's would alleviate so many problems.
For sure.
If we could realign the finances to allow a para in every classroom.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
And some of those finances can come from our district has hired or taken teachers out of the classroom. To then coach teachers. But if we're in a teacher shortage, shouldn't the classrooms be taken care of first?
Right.
Just things that don't make sense.
Exactly.
To me.
Because really, our goal is to students first.
It should be.
So it should be in the classrooms.
Right.
Yeah.
So another solution was that we need to recognize and value teachers, which sounds crazy. And I first want to say, all of the teachers that I have worked with, nobody went into this to be given accolades and recognized in that kind of way. But we also were very shocked at the amount of, or lack of, respect for our profession once we started. When I was in school, when we were in school, it was unheard of to disrespect my teacher.
Oh, yeah.
For a lot of reasons.
Right.
I was not going to disrespect my teacher, because not only would the teacher have followed through with some consequences that I wouldn't have liked, and I would have probably missed recess, and nobody would have said, well, she needs to get out and run. She has ADHD or whatever.
Exactly.
They would have said, you're missing recess. That's the consequence.
Too bad. So sad.
Now we can't take that away.
Right.
I went off a little bit. Sorry. But I also knew that my dad would absolutely have the teachers back, and I would have consequences at home.
Yeah.
We don't feel that as much. There are a lot of parents that automatically now assume the teacher has done wrong to their child. And that's just not something we anticipated or were ready for going into teaching.
No.
Because we're caregivers. We look at teaching, as I said, our calling, something that we really believed in. And so then when you have parents that are siding with their child before they even talk to you, it becomes discouraging. And so I think when they talk about, valuing teachers, that's what they're talking about. Not telling us how awesome we are or anything like that, but just respecting us as professionals and adults that are there to work and help your child.
Yeah, exactly. Another solution that was suggested is implementing systemic changes, which yes, it's again, this sounds good, where it was mentioned that policymakers must reduce the overemphasis on standardized testing.
Yes.
Which places undue pressure on teachers. Amen.
And students.
And it narrows the scope of education. So like more and more we're seeing and feeling like we need to teach to the test. And so that scope and those opportunities for students gets lost. And there's so increasingly the overemphasis on that standardized testing and test scores, and I mean, many times it's one test for these students, but we're looking at that versus their whole experience.
Well, and I mean, with the most recent curriculum, literacy curriculum, we were testing every Friday.
Yep.
Or every day 5, whatever your school. We were testing once a week on the content from those lessons, plus a spelling test, plus if you had any math test, which those ended up being maybe every 2 weeks to 3 weeks, they were getting tested constantly. And then at the end of each unit. They had basically a half day of testing over that whole unit for literacy. That's too much. It's too much for anybody, but for sure elementary.
Oh my gosh. And that was second grade that we started that. First grade also, though.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Kindergarten too. They all were having, I think kindergarten maybe did it every 2 weeks, but still, that's too much testing.
Yeah. Yep. Oh,
you don't even have time to really help the kiddos with what they're not getting, because you're on to the next part of the curriculum that you have to test then that Friday. So 4 days to teach and a day to test. It just was overwhelming.
And it didn't make sense to us.
No,
exactly.
We do believe that investments made to reduce class size and improving student-teacher ratios could alleviate many of these. But again, you need DOS or somebody to look at how states are spending their money. And in Minnesota, there's a lot of concern about that. I'm sure we're not the only state, but there's been some major fraudulent stuff going on right now that they're looking into. But just generally across the nation, let's really see how we're spending our money in the educational system and see if there are ways that we can change things around from the Congress or from even just our state legislatures down.
Right.
Because we really do feel like there's a lot of waste.
For sure. And if we could get the dose in there. You know, we joke about that, but it really, we are so serious.
I don't know that I'd be the one to be in charge of dose.
Not.
I'm not really a math girl. And I'm not saying that I have the power of yet. I believe I can be math girl. I just enjoy literacy. That's for all my education friends out there.
Exactly. But it's time to change things and change our priorities. And remember what our priorities are is the educating of our students and taking care of them. And it's crazy. But
so I think what helped us is when we team taught. That helped. We were both feeling burnout. It was within the first maybe 7 years of our career.
Right.
We were feeling burnout. And we'll spend a podcast sometime talking to you about how our class worked and because it might be beneficial to somebody else, you know, to try. But for us, that really helped for about 20 years.
Yeah.
And I think the burnout for us started up again probably right around COVID.
It for sure did. Yep.
COVID really zapped a lot of us and really just affected a lot of us in different ways, which is going to be part of this series that we're talking about, why teachers have burnout and why we're losing teachers. COVID was a big part of that in the past 5 years.
Yes. Whew, lots of information, right? But now that we've shared some of the whys of teacher burnouts and some possible solutions, next time we will delve a bit deeper into some of the reasons and get more specific information. And this topic will last for, we don't know how many, maybe 3 podcasts, a few. And so please be sure to share us or email your thoughts and ideas. Maybe you have a solution, or maybe you want to join our dose team.
Oh gosh.
So with that,
please remember to like and subscribe and share. That's what's going to help us be able to keep this going. Subscribing and sharing would be great.
Thank you.
So remember, education may be a little meh,
but let's change that together. Thank you for watching. Bye.